So the headline says Frisco is the most expensive place to be a homeowner in the state of Texas. It says Plano and Allen are in the top 10. Let's talk a little bit about why that is and if it's worth it. What are those dollars going to? What drives that number? Is it the age of property, the value of property? Is it the tax rate? Is it city services? Or is it simply that the statistics landed awkwardly this year and those properties rank highly on the list? We'll get into those things and more in this video. Hey folks, Todd Tremonti here with Market Experts Realty and the Todd Tremonti Home Selling Team with another video for you. This one comes from the news. We had a question come in on a headline that's been in the news that that Frisco, Texas, has the highest housing cost of any place in Texas, followed by the Woodlands down in the Houston area. But Frisco comes in at number 1, and in the top 10, you've also got Plano and Allen, Texas, as the most expensive places to live in Texas as far as housing costs. Now that factors in mortgage, taxes, and other kind of ancillary fees as well. But let's talk about this for a little bit, and let's talk about the major factors here. Really the number one factor outside the value of your home, because obviously Frisco is a community where many of the homes are nicer, larger homes, newer too. So the value averages up pretty quickly. We'll come back to that in a minute, but let's talk about taxes. Taxes is kind of the hot button item here, especially in the article that we're referencing. And, in the media, Texas gets kind of a bad name from time to time for having, quote, high property taxes. But obviously, as a state, we do not have a state income tax. And so the state is going to need its revenue. Well, I'll use that word need carefully. The state is going to get its revenue one way or the other. The benefit is that you could control your property tax amount within reason. Now, a lot of people are upset about rising tax valuations. They're capped as far as their annual growth, and there's been some legislation at the state level here recently to potentially cap that annual growth. But the point being, most communities in North Texas specifically have a property tax number between 2 and 3%. Now, there are some pockets that flirt around 3 and creep up and over, and there are some that are a little bit closer to 2. But for the most part, you're looking somewhere around 2.5% of your total property value paid in taxes. In Frisco, back to the original point, many of those homes are larger, newer, and nicer homes. Therefore, their value is higher, so their taxes are then higher. Now, this also remains true for most of Plano and most of Allen. So it's not all that surprising that these communities are in the top 10 statewide in cost of living. Now, it's not really cost of living, it's cost of housing, because many of the other living expenses are relatively consistent with most of the rest of the state. But I'll make a couple more points about Frisco specifically. Frisco has got so much development in the area, and there is so much of a land grab going on that even the land value is increasing at a faster pace than many other markets. So we see that same thing happening in Plano. We see a similar thing happening in Allen, where every amount of available land is either claimed, being fought over, or being developed on, whether it's residential, commercial, or for infrastructure uses. So when we look at Allen specifically, you've got 75 central expressways splitting Allen in half, and you've got different levels of development happening on either side. But you've got tremendous amounts of development happening on both sides, even to the point that the Allen High School football stadium had been a national point of discussion for a long time. We just recently shot a video about a lot of the excitement and discussion around the new potential cricket stadium and mixed-use residential, commercial, and office development in Allen at the Sam Rayburn Tollway and Alma. And that's just one snapshot of many things happening in Allen. When you look at Plano, you've got everything from major redevelopment on the east side of Plano dramatically, rapidly rising property values on the east side of Plano, as well as downtown Plano and the excitement happening there. And then West Plano, which has been exploding for years with residential and commercial and retail development. So when you get to come back to kind of the headliner of the story in Frisco, I don't know that there's a city in America with more retail development happening per capita right now than Frisco. We've had Toyota move their headquarters there. You had the Cowboys move their headquarters back up there. You've got the minor league ballpark there for the Rough Riders at the Dr. Pepper Stadium. You've got the Stars with a headquarters there. You've got the Dallas MLS Soccer Club with a headquarters there. And then you've got, you had all the IKEA development and Nebraska Furniture Mart and all those things going on in the area. But tremendous amounts of real estate development. The Frisco area there around Legacy for a while was called the $1 billion mile because there was over $1 billion of development happening within 1 mile. It's multiplied more than 3 times since then. And that's kind of just crazy to think about, as well as music venues and on and on and on. So when you think about Plano, just to bounce around a bit, you come back to the Collin Creek development. Collin Creek, for a long time, was a great mall and had over probably 2 decades lost a lot of tenancy and become one of those kind of in-between transitional malls that no one really knew what was going to happen with it. There has been multiple proposals for redevelopment of the mall, and nothing came through until recently. It looks like a plan. Again, we did another video on this as well, but a plan has come through for that to become a mixed-use development deal where there will be office space, retail, restaurants, and some of that mall will remain as a mall. Let's bounce back up to Frisco with the PGA coming, right? You got the PGA bringing headquarters there with a massive golf complex for actual golf courses, multiple courses to be played there, as well as their corporate headquarters, and then the surrounding development there. And that one's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres that will be developed for PGA and related uses there. So when you think about Allen, Plano, Frisco, and all the development, all the excitement, all the residential growth, it's not all that surprising that property values would be higher. Therefore, mortgage payments would be higher. And by the way, all this research on highest cost of ownership is on properties with a mortgage, right? So excluding the data on free and clear paid for homes. But again, those newer, and these communities have been around forever, but the rapid growth and development is relatively recent. And so those newer developments have a lower percentage of homes that are paid for. But the research was done on homes with a mortgage, homes that are financed. Therefore, the higher property values drive higher financed amounts, drive higher property payments, drives higher tax valuations because they're based on the value of the home. Frisco had an average cost of home ownership of about $30,000 per year. Now that is correlated to a higher property value, but you do see tax rates obviously have a big impact there. The average across the state of Texas is about $18,000 for the cost of home ownership for a home with a mortgage on it that is financed, okay? Now, let's just look around the state for a second to think about what this really means. Number 2 on the list was the Woodlands, which for probably 30 years has been thought of by most real estate people and developers as the single most successful planned development, master planned community in Texas, in the country, right? Now there have been some other developments that have tried to rival that, and I think Frisco's kind of given the Woodlands a run for their money in a couple of different developments. Allen's made some great strides, and of course Plano's got developments all over the place. But when you think about communities like the Woodlands, north of Houston, Sugarland, south and west of Houston, it's not all that surprising that these types of communities have the highest cost of home ownership. Now, let's transition for a second from the original question, which was basically, why do these areas have a higher cost of living? I think we've covered that fairly well. But the answer, the question I would want to ask next is it worth it? And my answer would be yes, it is worth it. Pretty much every community we just named is a low crime, clean, attractive, competitive, desirable, enjoyable place to live. These are the communities that have done a great job, not only with residential, commercial, retail development, but city services, parks, trails, community pools, things like this. So when you look at Plano, they've done a phenomenal job with some of their community pools. For example, Jack Carter Pool, really cool community pool that if you're a Plano resident, you could take advantage of, with diving platforms and rock climbing areas and the little mock surfing wave pool area, lazy river. This isn't just a city pool, a big square full of water that kids can jump in, right? These are attractions. These are things that are really drawing people in. Frisco's done an excellent job with this, with parks, recreation, entertainment, and places that you can go that the city provides and maintains as part of your tax dollars, dog parks and things like this that, communities used to kind of laugh at as gimmicks, and now they're becoming standards of these larger, nicer communities so that these communities can develop and maintain attractions so that people would want to move there. So yes, while it may cost a little bit more to move there, to live there, and some of that may be tied to simply that people that live there live in nicer, more expensive homes, some of it is tied to taxes, which lead to cities being able to provide some of these services that homeowners actually want. Again, to bounce back down to the Woodlands, the Woodlands is one of the most beautiful master plan communities that I've ever been into anywhere, and I've been in a lot. And one of the main reasons is the Woodlands doesn't allow street side signage. You don't see billboards and signs and advertisements. You see trees. You see woods in the Woodlands. Now, they have all that same gas stations and grocery and retail, but because of the way it was developed, those are all protected behind rows of trees and natural development. Lake Woodlands was put in to really reclaim a lot of low-lying swampland, and it's become an attraction. So that's just an example of what has been held as the standard bearer of a really, really great community. But the Woodlands has had a high tax rate and a high cost of ownership for a long, long time. Now we're seeing cities like Frisco and Allen and Plano echo that type of approach, and I believe it's successful. I believe it's worth it. It's sort of like living in a neighborhood with a homeowners association. A lot of people want to gripe about the owners association. Oh, I've got to pay the fees. Oh, they're always griping and sending me letters about my fence and my roof and the height of my grass. But you have even intangibly, maybe subconsciously, benefited from driving through, in and out of, and living in a neighborhood where people's grass is cut, people's fences look nice, people's shingles are done well. And that's part of paying that homeowners association fee. It leads to those benefits. It leads to continuity in property maintenance. It leads to nice flower beds and signage coming and going out of the neighborhood. It leads to those nicer pools and clubhouse facilities and things like that. So take that homeowners association mentality, even though you may not love, people over abusing their power with homeowners associations. The idea that a little bit higher cost of living in that neighborhood leads to higher satisfaction living in that neighborhood too. So if you live in Frisco or Plano or Allen, or you would like to, I would not take this headline. I would not take this thought that it cost more to live there as a negative. Now, by all means, it would be nice to have all the benefits with a lower cost as well, but I would take that, as a price of living in a wonderful community. I would take it as a point of pride that the money is at least being used well. The additional expense of living in a community is going to additional benefit from living in that community as well. Just take, for example, the Plano city pools. If you are not a Plano resident, you can go, then you've got to pay, and that leads to additional revenue for the city and additional enjoyment for property owners within the city. So the headline was that Frisco was the most expensive place to own a home in the state of Texas, and that Plano and Allen were also in the top 10. We unpacked why that is. And then I gave you my opinion, just my opinion. It's an educated, expert, professional opinion, but it's still an opinion. And I say it's worth it. So if you're thinking about making a move to Plano or Allen or Frisco, we've shot videos as part of our relocation series that you ought to check out some of the specific aspects of those cities. But if you found this video out of the curiosity around why those cities are expensive to live in, there's a reason. And I think those reasons are good reasons. So check those cities out. If we could ever help you make a move or invest or maintain your property value, click a link, call our phone number. There's information on the screen and in the links below. We would love to help you, and I will talk to you on the next video. Take care.